Is the vintage watch market dead? Let's dive in and find out. But the easiest way to kind of get a grasp on where things are heading and where things stand right now is to look at some auction results as we head into the end of 2024 auction season. We just had our first of the last end of year sales, which was a Sotheby's Hong Kong sale, their important watches sale on October 4th. We bid on 10 lots, so let's see if we won any and how we did and kind of try to extrapolate market analysis from that. Before I get started, even though I'm 10 years in this business, even I'm not prone to mistakes. I mistakenly thought that Sotheby's buyer premium was like every other auction house at 27%. So when I entered my bids, I did the calculations on what I wanted to bid based on 27%. It's actually not. They actually have the best rates in the game right now at 20%. So some of my bids were a little bit lower than I obviously would have bid had I realized it was 27%. That being said, let's jump in and see how I did. We're just going to go in order of the lots that I actually bid on. The first two lots being lots 2125 and 2126. They were two Brequet Tourbillon watches, a little bit of neo vintage, not quite super vintage. The first lot, 2125, was a Brequet Classique Tourbillon reference 3357BR for rose gold. This one was produced in 2002. It is post Daniel Roth era, so it was a little bit more of a modern watch. I guess you can call it neo vintage, about 22 years old now. I actually went lower on this lot than I did the following lot, which was 2126 Brequet, their first reference 3350 Daniel Roth era tourbillon, but we'll get to that in a second. So this lot was estimated 200 to 400,000 Hong Kong dollars. I bid, and we're just going to convert this and make it simple for everybody, in US dollars. I bid all in, so after fees and everything, but not including shipping and customs, 31,000 US dollars. This actually happened to be the closest I got to buying a lot in this sale. It sold all in for $34,000, which I thought was a very fair price and kind of in line with where the market has been. All of these kind of neo-vintage Brequets, whether it's a tourbillon, day-date complication, perpetual, they've all shot up, I would say, about 20 to 25% over the past 3 years, and we've seen kind of very steady growth in that market and very steady prices in that market over the past, let's say, 12 months. So I don't see anything wrong with this result, maybe even a little low, a great buy for somebody who wanted it for the wrist. Keep in mind the retail price on this watch was probably well over $100,000. I think if you looked on their website even recently for the last few years of the production of the 3357, they were over 100 grand, like $110,000 on a retail level, not, you know, after a discount or anything like that, but still an over 100K retail price, now selling for $34,000. Great deal for the buyer. Moving on, lot number 2126, which was the 3350. Now this is the earlier version. This one was produced, according to them, in circa 1991, while Daniel Roth was at the helm of Brequet. It is arguably the most desirable of these Classique tourbillon watches. It's my favorite. This one was in yellow gold, BA reference. I bid $36,000 on it all in. It sold for $40,000, which is right in line with the market. You can see a few examples listed on Chrono24 right now in that low 40 to mid 40 range. I thought this was a great buy for whoever picked it up. Obviously, just a little bit too marginal for me as a dealer. I bid where I was going to leave myself around 10% profit margin. It sold for the right price, kind of in line with what we're seeing, and nothing out of the ordinary, nothing low, nothing crazy high. Moving along, this is probably my biggest regret of the 10 lots that I bid on, and we're going to talk about why. It is lot 2136. It is an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak QP Perpetual Calendar, reference 25829 TR, TR meaning tantalum and rose, so it's an open work, jumbo Royal Oak Perpetual, skeletonized, tantalum, rose. I think they made these in like 15 pieces in the 1990s. They did, AP experimented with a lot of different case metals. They did tantalum platinum, all steel, all rose, all yellow gold, a lot of different variations, and they always made them very, very limited, especially with these funky case metals, this one being tantalum and rose. Super, super rare watch, super beautiful watch, one of my most favorite watches, and it's a really interesting conversation because these watches, during the height of COVID pricing, were to the moon. I think I sold one of these for around $400,000 in 2021 or 2022. They're extremely hard to find. These were all the rage, all of these AP jumbos and perpetuals. And since the market kind of crashed, as we know, in like 2023, everybody's been shy, and even myself included, scared to buy into AP because you're not really going to know where the prices are going to land. And it's been very difficult to buy with confidence this brand, and particularly the Royal Oak model, and same goes for Patek Philippe Nautilus. We have seen, or at least I've seen in the past 6 months or so, real strength in that market in terms of the numbers not crashing any further and even steadily going up little by little, not anywhere near COVID pricing at all, but steadily going up, and a lot more buyers willing to enter the fold and buy these watches, which has given me more confidence to buy them for inventory and resell them. But it's still kind of a crapshoot as to where you want to buy one of the bigger ones like this, not just your basic 5402 or 14790 time only Royal Oak. So this one had an estimate of 1.2 million to 2.8 million Hong Kong dollar. So at the low end, I think it was like 185 grand, which is exactly where I bid all in, $185,000. It sold for $216,000 all in. Again, a far cry from, I think, the over like $350,000 I sold one for a few years back, but I still think a fantastic deal. I wish I had more balls. I probably should have paid more for it. I think it was a fantastic buy for somebody who got it at $216,000. I think it's considerably worth more to the right buyer and should be worth more and will be worth more. These watches are incredibly rare, incredibly hard to find. I don't know. I think I should have just kind of sucked it up a little bit more and put in a higher bid, but I didn't, and I already immediately regret it. I think it's interesting to see how this market is now stabilized and, you know, projecting upwards, how it still makes it difficult to buy into this market and feel comfortable buying the watch. But I think everybody who's interested in these watches should possibly consider jumping in now before prices start to climb again, which I've been saying since they crashed that they will go back up. Personally, in my opinion, this is not investment advice or anything like that. This is just what I feel, that there is tremendous value in these watches and they are incredibly rare and incredibly iconic, and I cannot see the market not trending upwards over the next decade or so. Moving right along to lot 2139, this was a Vacheron Constantin, also perpetual calendar, also skeletonized, but a round 37 or 36 millimeter case. Their reference 43032J. These were produced in the 80s and 90s. They had a JLC movement. It was VC's answer to the Patek 3940 perpetual calendar in 36 millimeters and the Audemars Piguet perpetual calendar in 36 millimeters, reference 5548, which then was also skeletonized as well. This lot was estimated 240,000 to 400,000 Hong Kong dollars. I bid right at the low all in of $240,000 at 37,000 US dollars all in. I got blown out of the water. I personally thought this was like a 45K watch. It's the most basic one in yellow gold. We've sold plenty of these in the past in all different case metals, and I thought I had a pretty good grasp on the market, but they don't come around that often, and so it's kind of hard to kind of keep your finger on the trigger because you're not trading in and out of these every single day. It sold for a whopping $59,000 all in. I personally thought that was pretty strong, but it goes to show you that these rare watches and these perpetuals in these classic size 36 millimeter cases are always going to remain desirable, have remained desirable, and will probably continue to remain desirable as time moves on. The next lot that we bid on were a couple of Daniel Roths, lot number 2150, 2151. I guess you can consider these neo vintages. They were both produced in the 1990s, but these are early Daniel Roth while he was still at the helm of the company before they sold to Hourglass and before Hourglass then sold to Bulgari. So these are the most desirable Daniel Roths, although the market on these has been all over the place. They shot up a couple years ago, then they came back down a little bit, and then they revitalized the brand through LVMH, and then they shot back up again. These tourbillons, these early tourbillons, depending on the case metal, I've been trading anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000, so it's kind of hard to keep a grasp on the market. I took it easy on this one. There were two versions of it, one in pink gold, which was lot 2150, with an estimate of 200 to 300,000 Hong Kong dollars. I bid $46,000 US. It sold for a whopping $74,000, very far away from where I bid. And then the next lot, I actually bid less, even though it's technically a more complicated watch. It's lot 2151, and this is what they call their double-dialed tourbillon. So you have tourbillon on the front and then power reserve with a date indicator on the back, day of the month, I should say. So technically a more complicated watch. I like the simpler version with just tourbillon on the front better. Double-dialed one, while being very cool, is a little bit too thick for me, and so I like to put more money into a watch I believe in more. That being said, I bid $43,000 all in, again within the estimate, and boy, I wasn't even close, guys. This sold for $102,000 all in, completely blowing out the estimate and more than doubling where I put my bid in at. I was completely off the mark on this one, and it shows absolute strength in the Daniel Roth market. They just started delivering their new tourbillon subscription watches, and they look absolutely fantastic. I can only imagine that's encouraging buyers for these early examples and creating more and more excitement, and I completely understand why. I cannot wait to see one in the metal. I mean, the new one, that is. Moving right along, we have lot 2161, a watch that we sell often. The result wasn't crazy surprising. It is a Patek Philippe 3970 Perpetual calendar chronograph, so the continuation of the 1518 2499 into the 3970, a staple Patek Philippe, and for me, the quintessential Patek Philippe watch. This one was with extract only in yellow gold. I bid around $77,000 all in, figuring with extract only, without the box and papers and all the stuff it comes with. I can sell the watch around $85,000, maybe $90,000 to the right buyer. The condition was pretty nice on it, had a strong case. It sold for 780,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is 100K US dollars all in, which again, I think is a fair price for an end buyer to buy. It's obviously way too much for a dealer. Nothing crazy here. Strong for just extract. I would have expected it to go a little bit cheaper, but here we are. We've seen strength in the 3970 market for quite some time. This isn't anything new. It's probably been like this for several years now. These watches aren't going anywhere, and I think they represent some of the most value you could get in a complicated Patek anywhere out there on the market. And I've said that for years, and I still believe it. Moving all along, this was a really surprising one. It's lot 2175. It was a mid-90s Cartier Tonneau shape bamboo style watch. Quartz movement, kind of quirky watch. You really don't see a lot of them. I was kind of taking a shot on this one. The estimate was somewhat reasonable. I think I even bid at the high end of the estimate. I bid $15,500 all in, which I thought was pretty strong. I even consulted a couple Cartier expert friends who said, yeah, it's probably worth around $16,000, $17,000. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to bid around there just to have the watch as opposed to not having it. Boy, were we all wrong. This one sold for 336,000 Hong Kong dollars, which converts to 43,000 US dollars. Now, guys, yeah, it's a rare watch, but Cartier is so hot right now.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
It's a smaller watch. It's a quartz watch. I don't think anybody cares. They just want something cool and interesting from Cartier. Even though this isn't super vintage, it's from the 90s, so neo-vintage. It's that Paris era. On the dial, $43,000. I think this has to be a record for this watch. Obviously, they don't trade very often, so there's not a lot of comps to go around, but boy, that's a crazy result, I think, especially when I'm talking to other people and they're all agreeing with me that it's a buy in the mid-teens. Maybe somebody who bought this, and obviously several underbidders know something that I do not. Anybody knows something about this watch, reach out to me, let me know. If not, I guess it's just another sign of strength in the Cartier market. I mean, wearing one myself, love them obviously, but this is kind of crazy. Moving along, we only have a couple lots left, and then we're gonna look at a couple of bigger lots that I didn't bid on, but just may be cool to talk about. Lot 2183, which is another Cartier circa 1990. This was a Cloche in yellow gold. This one was a naked watch without box and papers, but I know that I bid around 22,000 US dollars, 140,000 Hong Kong dollars, and another lot that I wasn't even close on, and then I was very surprised by the result. It sold for 384,000 Hong Kong dollars, the equivalent of 49,000 US dollars. Now guys, I've had this watch as recently as couple months ago. I think in July I bought one. I bought one complete box and papers, and I think we sold it somewhere in the mid-30s. So I figured one that was naked, meaning watch only, would be worth somewhere in the mid to high 20s, you know, accounting for several grand for not having the box and papers. They don't come up very often. I think they only made like 100 in each case metal that they did, if memory serves. So they are kind of rare, and they are very interesting watches. You put them on the table to see the time straight up, so they doubled as a table clock. Certainly an interesting and iconic design from Cartier, but almost $50,000 for this one, watch only. I don't think there's any other auction comps that are even close to it. I know Sotheby's and Christie's sold them in the summertime. I think that's where I got the last one I had. And this has to be a record for this watch. Has to be a record for this watch. Again, Cartier doing great in the marketplace right now. Overall marketplace doing great right now. I haven't been able to pick up a single watch in auction in quite some time, or at least a major auction. Last lot that I bid on before we get to the two feature lots in the sale was lot number 2326, which was a reference 6241 Paul Newman Rolex Daytona, a watch that we know very well and we absolutely love having in the office and in stock. This example was in pretty good condition. I didn't see any major flaws, had nice yellow patina in the lume that looked original. Didn't seem like it had many flaws or any flaws on the dial. The case seemed a little bit polished, but overall a really attractive example. I think this was the most reasonable buy in the sale. I Probably should have gone a little bit harder, but again, it's really hard to bid on these watches without seeing them in person. Pictures can only show so much, so I took a more conservative approach and also screwed myself with the buyer's premium, and I bid a total of $232,000 US dollars all in. It sold for 1.92 Hong Kong dollars, which was 247,000 US dollars. I think this is a $275,000 US watch, should it all be correct and as nice as it looked in their photos. Again, I think it was a great buy for somebody who got it at this price, assuming everything's correct with the watch, and I probably should have went a little harder on it. Paul Newman market, kind of always where it's been. There hasn't been any growth in it in the past couple years, but there haven't been any steep declines either. It was not a watch that was severely affected by the COVID hype pricing, so there hasn't really been much change in the market, and good examples still sell strong and routinely. There were a couple feature lots in the Sotheby sale that I ordinarily would maybe take a stab at, but I didn't because I really don't like to bid on these watches unless I really have a good sense of their condition and originality. Not to say that these watches weren't, but without being able to see them in person, I'm always hesitant to bid on them. But anyways, they were lots 2354 and 2355. We had a reference 2499 Patek Philippe 4th Series Perpetual Calendar Chronograph, and right after that, a reference 1518J, which was the original Perpetual Calendar Chronograph by Patek Philippe, made in serialized production. Obviously, following that was a 2499 with a much larger, different case style, which is why generally they sell for more money than 1518s because they're bigger on the wrist. I personally love the 1518s. It's my absolute grail watch. Both of these were in yellow gold. Both of these sold over 600 grand, so 650,000 US dollars for the 2499, lot 2354, and $620,000 for lot 2355, which was the 1518 in yellow gold. I thought these were prices completely on par with what the market is, even maybe a little bit light for the 1518 because we've seen much stronger results for absolutely incredible examples. Again, I didn't look closely at these watches, so I don't know how great or not great they actually were, but none of these prices are surprising, and if anything, it just shows strength in these upper echelon watches that really nothing's changed when you're at the top level, kind of like what we've seen over the past couple years since the prices started dipping in the vintage market and the global watch market. When you're talking about these top lots that are extremely hard to find, extremely collectible, extremely rare, the opportunities to buy them are so few and far between, especially for good examples. So buyers are always going to be willing to pay up for them, regardless of what's going on in the economy. These are kind of recession-proof watches, especially for the people buying them at that level. In any case, these results are pretty indicative of what we've seen in the market and what I expect to see continue in the market. Overall, I went 0 for 10, guys. Another sale where I wasn't able to buy a single watch, and on some of them I was absolutely blown out by. So what do you guys think? Were my bids completely off the mark and way too low? Is the market getting really hot again? I guess time will tell. Let's see how the November sales are, but let me know in the comments below what you would have done differently or what lots you liked in that sale. Overall, thanks guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.